Well, you know it's gonna be a busy day when you leave the house with a list. Today I'm gonna be running around trying to get all this stuff done, and I thought I'd bring you guys along. That's what's going on today on Farmer Tyler Ranch.
Hey there, boy.
In the last video, when I explained to you guys the situation with Littles here, many of you suggested that I start feeding him some grain, and I actually started doing that a couple days ago. What I'm giving him is leftover pig feed because we harvested the pigs a couple days ago, and I think that should be okay for him because all it is corn, barley, and soybean meal. And you can see right now he's kind of deliberate about how he eats around the little grain pile there, and that's pretty normal. You have to train cattle to eat grain, and the easiest way that I found to do it, not that I do it a bunch, but is to just pour the grain on top of their hay so that as they eat the hay, they get a little bit of grain in there and then they figure out that they like it. But be that as it may, I might still go ahead and get some sweet feed to kind of sweeten the deal, so to speak, for him a little bit and get him going on that. Still need to run all the calves through the chute, but I don't think I'm going to have time to do that today. Oh, but one thing I am going to need to do today while I'm in town is get concrete for this project. But before I do that, I need to figure out how many posts I'm going to put in. So just kind of winging it here. I know I need 1, 2, 3 posts. We can utilize the existing post. That's why I put it here. And then down here at the end, we'll need another 1, 2, probably curve, 3, 4, and then a short straight section that will have the ramp. I've been thinking about this, and I don't see any reason why I can't bring this loading alley out like pretty far, kind of, because the bullpen sticks out, the working corral sticks out. There's really no reason to like keep this back in here. As long as I can get a tractor into the feed bunk and a tractor into the feed bunk at the bullpen, I don't really see any reason why this loading chute couldn't come like pretty far out here, which is good because I think it'll actually be a lot easier to use if it does. But anyway, I'm thinking out loud, 9 posts. We need concrete for 9 posts. Last thing while we're over here is cat food. Several people have asked me about the barn cats, and there's not really a lot to say. I catch glimpses of them every once in a while. I'm pretty sure that they're all still in here, but yeah, other than that, that's kind of it. There's one right there. And judging by the way he's sitting there staring at the hay bale, I think he's on the hunt, so I'm not going to disturb him. Oh, and one more thing, the steers need salt. Still got a few of my Redmond Farmertylerranch mixed salt here. And away we go. Well, we're just pulling in here at the steer pasture, and I think the first thing I'll do is throw the Redmond block in here to them so I don't forget about it when I'm on my way out of here. Just go ahead and put it right here where it's easy for me to see it every time I drive in. Not to be weird, but look at the butt on this steer. It just looks awesome. These guys really are a good looking bunch, and I know I keep saying I'm gonna pull a couple out and take home, and I do still plan to do that, but we're not doing that today. Well, from here on out, it's just all about hitting stores and spending money, getting all the stuff that I need to finish the projects that I'm doing right now. So just pulled in a Tractor Supply, got to grab a few things here. Next stop will be Lowe's, and then hopefully we can head home. So I'm not really sure if I mentioned yet what I was getting at Lowe's, and it was nothing too exciting. Just a bunch of concrete that I'm going to use to put the posts in on the new loading alley. And I figure the smart thing to do is just unload them right here in the hog barn, and then they'll be handy when we're ready to go. Well, there we go. All 27 bags under cover and out of harm's way. I figure 3 bags per hole or per post, and it usually ends up actually being a little bit less than that I need, but you know, never hurts to have extra. I did get a bag of sweet feed to start giving to the calf here, so he's staring at me. I don't know if he's hungry or not, but let's see what he thinks about it. The hog feed that I'm giving him is a 16% protein. This sweet feed's only 12%. And I think 16% is plenty high enough. If I mix the two together, what does that average out to? 14%, that's good too. That stuff smells so good, I want to eat it, but I won't. And he doesn't really seem too interested in it right now. I imagine he's still full from this morning. So we'll leave it there. It'll be real easy to tell if he's messed with it or not, and I'll try to come back and check on him before sundown and see how he did. I'm back out here in the shop now, and I was actually working out here last night, and as you can see, I finished a spinner for one side of the bale unroller. But the thing about these bale spinners is one by itself really doesn't do you any good. I still got to build one for the other side. The little spears here on the rollers are probably the hardest thing to make on this entire project, at least the hardest thing to make look good. This is where having a lathe would just be awesome. I could make a perfect point on those. Would it work any better? Probably not, but it would definitely look nicer. And as a matter of fact, I've been looking around at lathes and I just can't justify spending like $5,000 to $8,000 on one. But I have been looking at the Chinese-made mini lathes, or the one that I'm looking at, the bed is actually like 30 inches long. So I don't know if I would call that a mini lathe, but it's certainly not a full-size lathe. So I might end up getting one of those. I don't know. That price point is a little bit more realistic for me on this operation, but we'll see. Okay, next step is to make the star-looking part of this. And I've already cut a lot of the pieces out, so we'll just kind of pick it up from there. This piece is very hot at the moment, so I think I'm just gonna let it cool down for a little while. And while I'm doing that, there's another thing that I wanted to do that many of you mentioned, and well, let me show you what it is. When I put the grease fittings here on the end of the frame, a lot of people were worried or thinking that these were gonna get broke off because, I mean, you look at them, they are kind of sticking out here in harm's way. And when I originally put them in, my idea was to put a pipe over them, basically like that, to protect them. But I ended up not doing it because the frame is narrower than the tractor, and it just seemed like, well, it probably wouldn't be that likely to bump into things because the tires on the tractor would be protecting it. Not to mention the fact that if I welded a pipe around this, now there's no way for me to get in here and remove this fitting if I ever needed to. But the more I started thinking about it, the more I thought, you know, better to have a guard and not need it than need a guard and not have it. So the idea that I've come up with is to take this pipe and cut it in half, and then we'll put like a half circle around these fittings. That should protect them and then also give me enough room to get some channel locks in there to twist these off if I ever need to. So we got our two halves. They came out pretty good. So I'm thinking we might want to kind of put these on an angle like this, because I feel like odds are this will be most vulnerable when you're like setting it down. So if we've got the pipe kind of towards the bottom, it'll protect it on the bottom. It leaves it open on top, but I just don't really think that the hazards are going to come from here. They're going to come from here. An 1¼ inch shaft and an 1¼ inch hole. There must be a burr or something in there because it does not want to cooperate. There it's going. Getting there, getting there. Oh yes, looky there. Now that I got both spinners on there, I want to take some measurements, because the way I want this to be is with the arms on the bale unroller at a 90-degree angle to the main frame. I want the inside face of either spinner to be exactly 4 feet apart. And that side, need to close a little bit. That might have been too much. Eyeball says they're too far apart, but we'll find out. So I got 51 inches from interface to interface, meaning we've got to close a gap of 3 inches. We'll come in 1.5 inches on either side. Yeah, there's 4 feet on the money right there. These are basically in the perfect spot now, and if you're looking at this design thinking, hey, those set screws are not going to hold those shafts, when you start pinching bales eventually they're going to work their way out. I agree with you, and I think that because of that fact, what I'll do is cut out some spacers to go between the star and the bearing so that the shaft cannot physically press out that way. When I was thinking about how I wanted to make the spinners, originally what I was gonna do is what I did here, but I was gonna add a circle piece of like 10 gauge sheet metal just to fill in these gaps. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know, that's not really gonna do anything for the function of the machine. It's gonna grip the bale perfectly fine with this 3-inch wide flat bar, and I don't think adding that circle piece would really do anything except make more work for me. But I figured I'd point it out because pretty much every one of these things that I have seen, the roller wheels are like that. They're just a solid, I think they start with a square and just fold the corners over to make the little spikes. But this will work too. This might actually even be stronger. This bale unroller is oh so close to being finished. I feel like I'm saying that a lot lately, but I reached a huge milestone with it in this video in that it is functional now. I could hook this up to the tractor and I could go unroll a bale with it just as it sits. I'm not gonna do that though, because there's still a few things that I wanna do to it before I take it out and get it dirty. And those things are, I need to get all the hydraulic hoses hooked up. I've got everything sitting on the freezer over there. I just haven't plumbed it yet because I'm taking it apart, putting it back together so often that the hoses would just be in the way. But I need to do that and then figure out some sort of hose management to weld on the mast here, just a clamp to hold the hoses to make sure that they don't get caught up in a rolling bale or anything like that. We just want to make sure that they stay out of the way and don't pinch themselves on anything while it's moving. So that should be pretty basic. I'm thinking just a clamp down here and then maybe another one up here that kind of directs the hoses off to the side. I'll think about that a little bit more before I do it. And then the other thing, well, two more things, I guess. One of those being, I want to build some stands for this so that while it's not being used, it sits up off the ground and it'll be a lot easier to hook up that way, and it will be a lot better just for the paint and the finish and everything else for this to not be sitting on the dirt. I've got these little pieces of square that should perfectly sleeve over a 2-inch square, and what I need to do now is let this thing down off the stands, figure out where the balance point is, and then I can weld these on the arm somewhere, you know, in a strategic spot that'll help this thing stand while it's not being used. My plan for the stand legs is think of an upside down capital letter T. It'll be a tube going straight down and then a big long piece that sits on the ground so that, you know, if you bump this or whatever, it's not gonna fall over. And beyond that, it's just a matter of hitting this thing with the wire wheel and getting it all prepped and ready for paint. I think before I paint it, I will finish plumbing the hydraulics and actually hook it up to the LS and just make sure that everything works the way that I think it is supposed to before we do that last and final finishing touch. But we're not gonna have time to do that in this video. That's gonna have to wait for another one. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.